Greetings viewers, Rhadamant here. Thank you for tuning in to the first episode of a 6-part series playing Forever Skies. If you'd like to skip the overview, please use YouTube chapters. Forever Skies is a game where you return to Earth that has been ravaged by ecological and biological disasters, where you captain an airship and search for a cure for viral pathogens while scavenging for materials to improve your ship. It is quite similar to Raft and Subnautica, and before the stream I told the viewers about what to focus on, generally speaking, and building the airship was the priority by a 4-to-1 vote over pursuing the storyline, although they kind of go hand in hand. And I will allow you guys to make decisions via polling while we play as well. So let's go ahead and start, and I don't have the patience for permadeath because I like to be reckless, so I'm going to go with hard. So the difficulties here, hard is that you lose, 50% of your basic and advanced resources when you die, so there's more of a death penalty, and you get hungry and thirsty quicker.
Emergency landing.
All right, so that was the little intro. You're not really told very much, and I'm going to be reading a lot of the story as I go. So very obviously, you've got on the left energy or stamina, which is regained through the consumption of things like caffeine or rest, health, food, and water. And then the circle on the left is your viral resistance. At the top, you have a compass rose, so right now I'm facing east. And then at the bottom is the quick bar, the 5-button quick bar for items to use. And then in here, when you hit I, you've got your inventory with your backpack and oxygen tank, a to-do list, which is blank, blueprints, which is blank, and a database of what you know, which is blank. Basically, big old blank. So let's go and start to make progress. So here we go. I have picked up a first aid kit and the data pad for broken signal. A Sagittarius 2 went silent for months. Then this one signal, and silence again. None of us know what awaits you there, but if there is a chance that they have found the virus, then maybe we can survive. Find the virus sample at all costs. The fate of all of us depend on you. The Ark. And this was my little landing pod. That reminds me of the game Tin Can. And boom. This is the lovely planet I live on. To talk about it at very broad strokes, the dust, which absolutely murder kills you, is below, and the higher you fly up, the more likely you are to get hit by lightning. So, sort of like Subnautica, where there's multiple elevation levels, which regard to difficulty, sort of. There's really nothing left in my tin can, so let's go look around. Oh, also, don't fall. I mean, if that wasn't already obvious, falling bad. Falling is
Parameters low. Check the database for details.
Definitely one of the most likely things to kill me. So, this is the little tutorial about health parameters. So we've got the immunity circle, fatigue bar, health, hunger, thirst, like I said. And then, in order to build your airship, you are going to want to find things like machine parts. And F is flashlight, if you're wondering. So collecting machine parts, and then there's a lot of things that are made of stuff. So, for instance, this little barrel here, or canister, is made of synthetics, but I don't have the proper tool to harvest it. That comes a bit later. I also don't have the proper tool to scan it, either. Again, comes a bit later. Spoilers! Sorry. Alright. There are certain items that you're going to want to collect forever, because they're rare and precious, and then some items that you have plentiful of. And I'll be mentioning these to help you along. But the TLDR is machine parts is pretty good to have. First aid kits, unless you find yourself... I actually don't find a lot of uses for first aid kits because most of the way you die is you fall. And you're not going to use a first aid kit when you fall. You're just dead. And then, like, there's not a lot of other ways to take a lot of damage unless you're very sloppy. So first aid kits, you're probably not going to need too many. So here we go. Use the computer, and it's out of power. So this thing, to power it on, requires a solid-state battery. Solid-state batteries are one of these things that are almost always a collect item. Because they have a lot of value, and you don't often find them. So grab them when you can. So here's another data pad. Everything's been screwed up since we found the damned virus. We're all getting sick, equipment is breaking down, and then there's this Noah situation. The power blew out again, and the door is locked. I'll check the beacon tower if the beacon tower has a compatible battery. So here is some canned water that I'm going to drink by right-clicking, which gives 25 water. Your viral resistance, I should mention, which is your ability to resist viruses from the environment and creatures and food and things like that, is driven by the other stats. So it's a combination of all your other health factors. So if you're very hungry or very thirsty or very tired or wounded,
diseases might become more severe.
Your immunity decreases and diseases become more severe, as the almost generic AI voice that almost every game like this has says. So here's some food, I say with like quotation marks, called sunmelon. Sunmelon carries disease risk if you eat it. I know I'm very hungry, but I ain't going to be baited into that nonsense. But here is the beacon tower, and that is a solid-state battery that I yanked out. So back down to the laptop.
New radio message received.
So we've got an undelivered message. We were down under the dust. We found a lab where they first analyzed the virus 400 years ago. That's when it all started going to hell. Noah went crazy. The bastard stole the sample, our airship, and broke the radio. He just left us to die here. He's dangerous as all hell. The location of this sample is at the overgrown greenhouse. A scientist lived up there who studied the flora from under the dust. If you want to get there, try visiting some radio towers and wind farms to get necessary devices. Be careful. This world no longer wants us. It's not a place for humans anymore. And then the other things is just a notification about what, canned water and sunmelon is. So sunmelon, for instance, has a threat of photophobia virus, which makes you sensitive to staring at the light. Basically, makes you severe. It kind of makes you like a vampire. You stare at the sun and you burn your eyes. So, eat raw only when you absolutely need to. Now, unfortunately, you can't pull the solid-state batteries out of these things. These sort of like quest stations. Otherwise, I would grab that back, if you were wondering. So, return to Earth is the current priority. And find a way to depart the location. I'm going to leave the just starting for now, because we really are in the sort of pre-tutorial here. So we got some more machine parts, and another first aid kit. Some 400-year-old dead people. They look pretty good for 400 years. And old food rations, which I'm going to eat, and canned water. I'm going to take both. So now my food and water is a little bit higher, and you can see my immunity bar has gone up. Noah's madness. It's all because of this damn dust. Noah heard voices. He was mumbling about nature surviving everything, even the fall of the world. He said that he knew what to do so we could return to Earth again. He wanted us to help him, to follow the voices in his head. Lunatic. We locked him up in a cell for his own good, but the bastard hid an extractor and ran off while everyone was asleep. Sounds like the lunatic outsmarted you all, but alright. Boom! So this is the starter airship, my little dirigible. And we've got an empty bottle. I'll take that. More first aid kits. So empty bottles are not just for water. They're for a variety of things. Water being chief amongst them, but they can store several other liquids. A lot more machine parts. Photophobia virus research. So this is sort of assuming that you ate the sunmelon and you got photophobia. But my research on photophobia virus has shown that it can be cured with, I'm not going to say that word, lecithin? I don't know. Sorry. It's best found on dust moths and other living things in the dust layer. So essentially, go eat some dust moths if you got photophobia. I prepared a lure to attract these objects using the insect catcher on the airship, lower it into the dust, and wait for the catch. And I just picked up the lure. and a condenser membrane, which helps you get water, which I will show you in a second. But let me go ahead and eat this old food ration, 400 years old and still fresh. Yep. I think that's everything from this room. So, occasionally you will find these things. They have dirty water. You can drink dirty water if you want. I would not advise it if you can help it. Dirty water does carry its own risks because it's contaminated with dust particles, so it will hurt you. So you can drink it and then offset it with first aid kits if you want, but filtering dirty water is relatively easy and something you do relatively early on. So I would say, you know, it's probably not necessary. Probably not the way they wanted me to walk over here. Oh, I already got the sun melons here. Never mind. Just give myself some more work. Before I go into the airship, I just want to collect as much as I can. Airship to-do list. So here we go. Place the rudder, place the fabricator, place the deck extractor, extract the wall blocking the workshop, get the research station. So, get the ship launched. That is what I'm currently working on. So here's the fabricator, and the fabricator is kind of your like universal printer, sort of like Star Trek, I guess, a little bit. And we can only put that on an airship. So here we are on our little airship, and I put down the fabricator. So the fabricator currently knows deck extractor, which allows you to extract raw resources from physical objects in the world, a water purifier, which we're going to want pretty early on, like I was saying, purify your own water, an electric cooker, which is also important, insect catcher and simple lure, and then also a bed for when you need a rest and regain your stamina. But let's go ahead and craft the deck extractor. So the deck extractor is something that you can put on the deck of your ship out here to extract resources. It's going to be early game the primary way you gain building materials. So I'll drop that there. I will also, however, open the lure, stick the simple lure in, and lower it. One thing to note, this lure takes about 20 to 30 seconds to catch and has a durability of 3, so it can catch 3 things and then it breaks. And then I'll put the condenser membrane on top of the water filter, which collects water from the air, but the water will still be dirty. So here's how the deck extractor works. You point it at things that are shimmery, and you gain the materials that they're made out of. Things like metal and synthetic being kind of like just plastic, are very plentiful, and they fly around as these giant balls of stuff all over the planet. Whereas glass, like this, is a lot more rare. So if you want to have a ship that has a lot of glass surfaces, collect glass. So this thing has found some dust lettuce. I'm going to lower it back down. And food will rot, if you're wondering. So it's going to be important to... Until you get, like, refrigeration later on, it's going to be important for you to, like, cook and eat only what you need, rather than to keep an abundance of food. So don't do a bunch of, like, luring of plants and moths and insects and stuff, thinking that you can save it for later, because it's going to be ruined by the time you likely will need it. But I did just make an electric cooker, so I'm going to stick that right there. And then the next thing I'm probably going to want is a water filter. So I'm going to get a water purifier next, so that I can boil my water with pure water rather than with dirty water. You would think that, like, you could just boil water, you could use dirty water in the process, but I don't believe that that is good for you. And I'm just going to keep collecting the random materials that are here.
Printing completed.
In terms of materials, unless you're doing a lot of building, you're going to want a lot more synthetics than metal. Synthetics can be turned into fuel, which helps to keep you moving, and also turned into, like, plastics and stuff, which is a very highly used building material that you tend not to get a lot of, whereas metal is more niche. There's not a lot of uses for metal. So you're going to want roughly like a 3-to-1 ratio of synthetics to metal when you're collecting it. Luckily, if you take a look at the sky debris, it's about a 3-to-1, 4-to-1 or so ratio of synthetics to metal. So what you need is also floating around at all times. However, glass is not floating around, which is why I say get glass as much as you can. You're going to want a stack or two of glass, which is like 50 to 100, if you do a lot of building. So here's the water purifier. This bad boy can be slapped to the wall, and adding dirty water to it. And the dirty water will filter, and then eventually be pure water. One thing to note, you're going to want an empty water bottle. So right now what I could do is fill my empty water bottle with dirty water, but the problem is then I would have functionally no way to drink the clean water. So have 2 water bottles, one for filtering and one to store your clean water. That would be my advice. All right, then the other thing that I need to do is go into the lab. So I use the deck extractor to remove this metal section here, and this is a very common thing that you'll see on the bases that you discover. They'll have walls that block your path, and you have to remove them.
Immunity is decreasing. Diseases might become more severe.
So there's a few solid state batteries there. Blueprint research. I managed to repair the research station. There are a few old blueprints preserved on the memory card, but most of the important ones is in the scanner. It is necessary to complete its research and craft it. After that, it should scan certain objects in the world so we can acquire more data for blueprint research. I need a battery to run the device. I dug out this old power box from the ruin. There should be some batteries inside. So I just grabbed those. So this is the research station, hanging from the gantry crane thing, I think. And I'm just collecting everything I can before going back to the ship. Yes, you can see the cost of the item in the fabricator. I'll show you that in just a second. And also, this, sort of yellow tape means the wall isn't built. It's not like a glass thing with a pattern. It's actually just unbuilt. Whereas these here, the side doors, are constructed and physical objects. Just to know that, don't think that you can brush up against it, you'll fall out of the craft. So the actual costs are right here. So, for instance, a deck extractor costs a transformer and machine parts. Water purifier, so on and so forth. All right, we're going to go ahead and bottle the clean water. Stick the clean water bottle into the bottom of the food processor. And then I think the sun melons are going to go bad first, so I'm going to boil the sun melons. And let's put down the research. So some objects work for free, like the water bottler or the lure. And then some objects, or the fabricator for that matter, some objects require power. So this research station, and you can hold Q to reposition it. You can also R to rotate. It's a pretty big object, so you're going to want to shove it up against a wall, keep it out of the way or whatever. But this object requires a solid-state battery, and it can be used up. So once we do a lot of research, I'm going to need to put another battery in there. So here's what we can research. We can research a tool charger, a repair patch, an empty bottle, a scanner, and a machine parts. And once you research this stuff, most of it is made on a fabricator. There are other crafting objects that you unlock later on, but the basic fabricator is going to cover roughly 90% of what you need to print. So let's go ahead and get the scanner. The scanner will allow us to scan technology out in the world and then replicate it on our own fabricator after doing research. Do you have to worry about the overall mass of the airship? Yes. Yes, you do. It does not fly for free. So after boiling the sun melon, it provides food, water, and health, and no longer carries disease risk. So I can eat it without issue. I'm going to do the dust lettuce next. The dust lettuce, however, can be eaten raw, but it's better. Everything is better cooked as far as I know. Like a universal truth, cook yawada. Alright, so we did just get the scanner. And here it is. You can see the yellow indicator. So we're going to make one of those, and that requires the other solid-state battery that we had.
Printing completed.
So here's my little scanner.
Analysis complete.
And if you hold tab, you can see what there is to scan out in the world. So right now the scanner is like, hey, go scan one of those weird synthetic balls. There it is. Or scan some floating metal. There it is. And it will tell you how to collect it and kind of tell you what it's for. So there is a ton of data in your terminal or on your whatever. But here it is, like the synthetic cluster, where you collect it with deck extractor, so on and so forth. But all things can be scanned here. So let's go ahead and scan the water basins.
Immunity is decreasing. Diseases might become more severe.
Little detour. I don't want to starve too much. There we go. Much better. And just scan, like, everything possible. Because the game will track, like, what your progress is towards finishing a certain areas with the scanning. So, you know, if you pass things up, you're going to have to double back and do it again, and that's kind of annoying. So I'm just going to make sure that, like, this poster... Let's collect that. And an old isotonic drink. I'll scan that. Kind of like a energy drink, I guess. I don't think... there actually might be something to scan down this way. Scan the computer. It's an old expedition computer. And the things that can be scanned will shimmer when you have the scanner up. That shimmering is just the fire of my landing pod. So it's not quite the same shimmer. Scanning old remains. Is the scanner infinite? No, if you look at the hotbar, you can see the yellow meter under it. It does run on power, but I can build a tool recharger to be able to recharge it when it dies. There are 2 types of rechargers, or at least in the game so far. So this uses the regular tool recharger, but there's a second type. And we can see some of Noah's drawings. So this was where Noah was stashed, and, you know, he broke out. I think that might be it. It's not a big deal if we skip something. The game will kind of inform us that we're missing certain blueprints. So anytime you land on a new area, the game will sort of analyze whether or not there's science for you to do there, which is really nice, so that you can't really miss something. It would be like if you're playing Subnautica and Subnautica was like, all right, don't leave the seaweed biome because there's like 2 more research things to do here. But I believe we're done. So the other thing that I want to do before we leave is to print up some bottles. So I'm going to do science for a bottle. And I just actually lost the sun melon. It just spoiled. I can, however, cook the rotten food and make it edible-ish. So now you can see that my food and water is pretty good. So for a second bottle, I'm going to need some extra synthetics, which is really easy. They float around. The deck extractor does have a limited radius, and also like a... you know, it doesn't spin 360. How much did I need? 35 or 25? 25, perfect.
Printing completed.
And the extractor kind of locks onto its target. So once I hit one of these floating synthetic clusters, it locks onto it so that it's a little easy to keep it centered. There's less aiming involved, which is really nice. So here's some other research that I can do. So the tool recharger allows me to recharge tools. There's energy and fuel, which is going to be kind of necessary in order to, like, leave, because this dirigible only has the balloon, but it doesn't have thrust or anything like it. It doesn't have, thrust. How to make my own machine parts. A storage box, which would be really nice. Repair patches, which help repair your ship. The water condenser. What I will say is I don't really find the need for multiple water condensers. Not unless you're making a lot of biofuel, which I can get into later. But mostly just the one water condenser is fine. So that will be pure water. I think I'm gonna want another bottle. Yeah, I'm gonna want another bottle. So we'll get a little bit more synthetic. And I guess before that, the energy and fuel will start the research.
Research finalized.
Printing complete.
And I might as well just go through the rest of the research, because I'm going to want all of it eventually. Some's a little bit more urgent than others. But yeah, this extra bottle, I wanted it so that I can keep fresh water on hand, so I can just right-click and drink it. Because it's very easy to keep your water at full as long as you're, like, cognizant of purifying whenever there's water to be purified. But the reason I wanted the other bottle is so that I can run around and grab. Another thing you could do is you can just drag the water. So I just move 3 units of water into the one that's in the cooking station. And then I can lower the lure to start collecting more bugs that will stay on the line waiting for me to collect them when I return to the ship. So right now I'm just running around collecting some dirty water so that I can filter it, topping my water up. Because this starter base or platform or whatever you want to call it has a lot of the sort of dirty water collectors here that make it very easy to get as much water as you want. Also, if you want to empty out the bottle, if you hold left alt and then left click, it will dump it. So if I have like too much dirty water, for instance, which is true right now, right? I've cleaned water in the purifier and I have nowhere to put it because I have 2 full bottles of dirty water. I can just dump the dirty water out to collect the clean water. Alright, it is time to craft an engine. So here's repair patches, and here's engines. So for an engine, I need 1 more synthetic. Easy peasy. These flying spheres are just flying spheres of, like, plastic, called synthetics. And then there are clusters of metal as well. One thing I realized is the wind is coming from this direction, so it's going to be better for me to have the deck extractor pointed towards the wind. When you're flying around, it will actually tell you the direction of the wind on the rudder, so that you know, if you have a deck extractor on your ship, you know which way to kind of point it to be most ideal. So here's the rudder, and you can see in the bottom left of the rudder gauge, there's wind, and wind is coming from the front. I have no engines, and then I have a maximum altitude, depending on the turbines, and then balloon, and the weight of the craft.
Printing completed.
So here's my engine, my little starter engine. And now that I'm holding the engine, because the engine has weight, you can see the max load of the aircraft is 500 kilos, and the engine weighs 35, so that will add the yellow difference that you see there. And I'm going to put the engine in the back.
Maximum flight speed increased.
And now I have a maximum flight speed of 15 kilometers. And I'm going to use some of my synthetics to make synthetic fuel.
Printing completed.
There are other fuel types. Synthetic fuel is very easy to resource because synthetics float around like crazy. And I'm going to make a few batches of this. It's pretty low efficiency fuel, so I'm going to want, you know, 2 batches. Drop it in the fuel tank. And I feel like this sounds a little low. Alright, depart! So in terms of controls, W and S is speed. You can also lock speed with R, so that you can lock it in going 15 miles an hour forward, and then like do things on your ship, which is nice. And then shift is up, and left control is down, and A and D is heading. So at the moment, the game wants me to fly to the flashing signal light. To the flashing light. And much like Raft, the world is full of these like little kind of islands that you can explore. So we'll go to one of the lights. And it's worth noting I'm heading north. That will become relevant later on. So we're on the move. How am I feeling about it so far? Well, I have like maybe 10, 15 hours in the game, and I really like it. I'm excited to see how it progresses over time. So it looks like that flashing light's going to be a little closer. And I'm going to get as much elevation as I can, heading towards it. couldn't get it in time. What about that? Of course, if I wanted to park, because you float due to the buoyancy of the helium balloon above you, you can always just stop your craft and you don't use fuel that way, or resources for that matter. So one of the other things I wanted to research here, which is going to be really nice, is storage boxes. So that's going to become relevant as soon as I get my first plastic, which is about to be in a second, I think. Does colliding with the balls do damage? Yes, particularly in high winds and storms. But not a lot of damage. You can tank them for days before it becomes much of an issue. One thing you cannot tank, however, is landing hard. So there's a little anchor icon on the HUD here. Ease it down if you want to anchor. Don't slam it, because you'll do damage. So that little yellow parking anchor icon will light up, indicating that you've actually parked it. It's not necessary to park it, it's just like maybe something you want to do. And the UI just told me that there are discovered objects here that require scanning. So I am at a radio tower. That's the type of point of interest I'm at. And it wants me to scan a wrecked basic turbine and plastic scrap and electric elements. You can see that here on the HUD. So I have an idea of what there is to be gained here, which is cool. So here's plastic scrap.
Research finalized.
Plastic scrap is one of those things that you can pretty much never have enough of, because it's required in a lot of construction and crafting, and you use tons of it. So it's one of very few items I would say always grab it. You're just never going to have enough. Here's electric elements. Similarly, you're going to want a lot of electric elements and turbines or transformers, which is the other object that's there. There's a solid-state battery. And then this is the basic turbine, which is kind of like an engine, but allows you to go up and down rather than forward and backward, giving you extra elevation. A huge part of the game is the elevation controls. A lot of the story missions require you to go higher and higher and higher, or alternatively lower. But to go higher, you're going to need turbines. That brings me to another point. You should not drop your airship too low because of the dust layer. If you go too far low, you will destroy yourself. It's kind of like, think of it as like flying shrapnel down there. There's another thing to scan over here, which is the moth cloud. Moth swarm. It just tells you about the fauna here. What else was there for me to scan? So if I go to studies, radio tower variants. So here you can see that I've only done 36% of the scans for radio tower variants, but that's not to say that everything I need to scan is here. It might be at other radio towers. Not all radio towers are the same, and they have different things to be offered. So, you're going to have to visit multiple locations in order to get that done. So there we are, a synthetic case. And then another solid-state battery. My inventory is fast filling up, as you can see. Trying to think if there's... yeah, let's go down. I see plastic at the very least. I'm slightly allergic to ramps and stairs, as you can see. I just jump and hope I don't fall to my death. So there's definitely something to... That's a metal piece of wall. Not that interesting. But there's other points of interest down there that I'm going to want to explore. Oh, I can drop down into it. So this thing is made of plastic. I might want to collect that before I leave this radio tower.
Immunity is decreasing. Diseases might become more severe.
A repair patch. I think that's the first. And a data pad. So this data pad has information about how to make window walls. So that's another thing that you're going to find. At various locations, you're going to get sort of blueprint unlocks on data pads in order to make certain things. A lot of them are going to be cosmetic or furniture-esque, like tables and chairs, but some of them will be actually pretty useful, like window walls. So if you want a good view from your dirigible, window walls is where it's at. and window floors and viewing. There's sort of like something like a cupola, so you can get a viewing cupola as well. And bigger cockpits, although I don't really like the bigger cockpits. So here we go. It wants me to research the airship builder. So the airship builder allows you to add sections to your ship, and that's going to be sort of the next piece of research that we do.
Research finalized.
And craft one. So, I'm using one of the solid state batteries. Why didn't I scan that wall on the bottom? The game wasn't prompting me to scan it. The game was prompting me to extract it, I believe.
Printing completed.
Huh, the hitbox on that thing is weird. So now I have the airship crafting tool that allows me to build upon the airship. And I'll be doing that shortly. But I wanted to get the glass. Oh, I think we're about to get a storm. I wanted to get the glass first as well. Hey, bud. Here you go. What's my favorite so far? I don't know if I can say I have like a definitive favorite. I think that it takes the concepts of games similar to this one and sort of perfects upon it. It feels very clean and well polished, and I think that's what I like the most. Because a lot of the times in early access games, it won't feel clean and well polished, which then is a pretty good indicator to me, at least, that the game will never be like cleaned up that much. Like, it can only improve so much if it's built on bad bones, and this game feels like it's built on pretty good bones. And what's on the roadmap is cool, like 4-player co-op and, things like that. I'm just trying to get the glass. It's not as important as I'm making it seem.
Warning. Low altitude.
Later on, there are certain points of interest that are like greenhouses, which are covered in glass, so it's a little bit easier to get glass from them. But I might as well have it. So I do have the airship builder, and it wants me to build a new room on the airship. I'll be doing that in just a second. So here's how it looks. You right-click, and you pick the type of room. So we've got a small cockpit, which I'm already using, a ladder room. One thing I would say about the ladder room, the ladders are really annoying to use. You can't just like drop in the hole or whatever, climb quickly. So I try to build... For better or for worse, I try to build my entire airship one floor, so that I avoid ladders. I will build a ladder to show you what I mean, just so that you have a point of reference, but I really don't like them. So let's build a room back there, off the back of the ship that is incomplete, because there's a section back here that is not finished. Because it would be good for me to get a bed. My character's pretty tired. Thank you for tuning in to Forever Skies, which originally streamed live on Twitch July 4th. If you have any feedback or questions for me, let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to catch a live stream of mine, Rhadamant.com has my stream schedule and countdown timers to upcoming streams. If you would like to join my gaming community, Rhadamant.com also has a link to Discord, as does the description of this video. Thank you so very much for watching. A special thank you to my Patreon patrons, Twitch subscribers, and viewers like you that support the channel and made it all the way to the credits. Thank you so very much. I hope to catch you on next episode or an upcoming stream. Farewell.